Hello, Music Multiverse listeners. It's time once again for, well, a visit to Canada, the vast, great North. Our panelists today have found some outstanding albums from the country that brought us the Great Gretzky, James Cameron, Swiss Chalet, and Canada Dry Ginger Ale. Enough of the
And
advertising.
Molson. And
Yeah,
Molson.
well, now you're stealing one from next time. They will each share one of these albums with us, why it's a great album from the Great North, their attachment to the album, and why, if you don't know it already, you should have it in your ear and give it the attention it deserves. There's no particular genre here. It can be a new album. It can be an oldie. Canada, in my humble opinion, and I'm not Canadian, I don't look good in red. I'm one of the most, backing guys for Canada because I think it's the most consistent musical making forces in the industry. They have vast passion for the any and all genres. That, of course, wasn't always the case, but here we are now. I think they really got a superb ear on music, and they obviously don't let anybody just get on the radio. Before we scamper across the northern border, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Please click subscribe button so you'll get connected with us more. And of course, please like and comment as it really helps us develop the channel a little bit further. So on the panel tonight,
Me,
no, Jeff Young, my Canadian partner in Canadian touring crime, going to see every freaking club we could go to, and for what, at least 20 years. Above him is
been going to Canada since I was 19.
Yeah.
That was the magic age.
That's
when they let young males in from the United States.
That's right. Also joining from Arizona, the Grateful Dude, and damn, Deb Armitage Hicks Maloney is with us. Are we all ready for this? You got your album ready?
We do.
All right.
We do.
And obviously, we defer to ladies first. So, Deb,
thank you.
Lay it on us.
Well, go Bills is what I've got to say right now. My album that I chose was by Bruce Cockburn, Dart to the Heart, 1993, I believe. I've seen where it says 94, but I think it was 93. Bruce Cockburn was born in Ottawa, Ontario. For all these US people, Ottawa is the city, Ontario is the province. In 1945, he started playing clarinet and trumpet early on, and an aunt gave him some old guitar and said, "Why don't you try this? This is what real musicians play." So he took that guitar to get some lessons, and finally the guitar teacher said, "This is unplayable, and don't come back here for another lesson unless your parents get you something with strings that work." So that was the beginning of him going, "Well, that's kind of cool, I I can do that." So his parents got him a guitar, and then his guitar teacher was quite pleased. He was being born in 45, obviously. He was influenced by Elvis, Chuck Berry, Jerry Lee Lewis, that kind of thing. Once he got into bands, and I don't remember what bands he started with. They didn't mean anything to me. But they finally started getting into venues where they were opening for acts, including Jimi Hendrix, Cream, to name a few. His first solo, though, was in 1967. And that's when it really became forefront to him that he needed to do his own stuff and maybe not be part of a band, but have people backing him up. And that's what he wanted to do. So fast forward to the 80s, being a Canadian, he became a really big activist. And Canadians are known for their social awareness, and his was more focused on banning landmines. I don't know if he actually toured places that and spoke on that, but he did tour around South America when he became an activist for deforestation, especially in Brazil, and just what the global impact would be with that. So he kind of took a step away from his music at times during his career to focus on those types of things, but always came back to music. His later years, he collaborated a lot with like T-Bone Burnett. He liked the blues guys, right? And obviously his Canadian counterparts like Emmylou Harris. She's Canadian, right? Am I
Yes,
right?
you are
Sam
correct.
Phillips. Is Phillips Canadian? I'm not
Mm,
sure.
not off
But
the top of my head.
Was
Could be.
Jackson Brown? Is
No.
Jackson Brown? He's not.
No.
Okay, but there was a lot listed. Most of them were Canadian, and I picked a few other ones out that I have heard of. But this particular album, it appealed to me because 93 or 94, whichever year it was. I'm sorry, Mark, if I don't have the right date.
It's 94.
Um, it is 94.
Mhm.
When I was listening to certain songs, whether it was on YouTube or on my Prime station, it would sometimes say 93 or 94. So I don't know if it had to do with when he
Had to
said
do.
he
So what
wrote
happens
them.
is if you're listening to singles and stuff, the single could be released ahead of the album.
That's what it was
That's
then.
okay. Yeah.
But
A lot of that
because
happens. I mean, yeah. Yep.
okay, that makes sense. Because I had 94 at first, and then when I
Mhm.
started to listen to some of the singles, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's in that time frame in my life when my kids were young and I was listening to things that I could put on in the car that would, it kind of go along with a mom in a car with kids, and it wasn't like Nirvana and things like that. Um, his music in this particular album, there's 12 or 13 songs. There's a couple that are all instrumental, acoustic. Um, and they're kind of sprinkled in there when you least expect it. And I like lyrics and I like the vocals in that. But I like those songs. But the very first song starts out, it's a 50s, 60s genre, which I find interesting that he does that with a lot of his albums, is that was what his influence was, the 50s and 60s music, and he tries to start things on what he knows. Um, but this album, the second song, and then many of them after, it has such a Springsteen, Nebraska sound to it. It's every time I listen to it, I go, it sounds like Springsteen and Nebraska. That more soulful, nostalgic, not the born in the USA kind of Springsteen, more going back to my home and nostalgic stuff, as I said. Some of the songs have some lighter guitar in it and different kind of string instruments that I can't name off the top of my head, but he did tour when he was young, right out of college. He took some time to tour Europe and play music in Europe, and you can kind of get a flavor for that kind of thing. And um, his influence during that time went and was changing from jazz into blues a little bit more, but then touched on reggae, and there's some Latin in it. Not so much this particular album. This album is more bluesy, jazzy, or even like I said, the Springsteen, Nebraska folk, like telling a
Yes.
story, folk
Yeah.
telling a story. And that makes sense because at this point, he was in 94, he was almost 50 years old. And so he's probably reflecting on things. There's one song that I really, really like. It's Burden of Angels. It's real bluesy, but it segues into Pink. If you listen to it, you will hear David Gilmour, Pink Floyd in parts, Dark Side of the Moon. It's weird. Like I didn't expect it, but I listened to it so much that I don't know if he was copying it on purpose, but you will hear it if you take your time, and there's phrasing in his lyrics that are very Tom Petty-ish, where you can tell he's still telling a story, but to Pink Floyd music. It's great. Number 4. There's a lot of Christian references in it too. He's a not a fundamentalist religious person, but he's a Christian person. He believes in the Christian way of life. So you'll hear a lot of that in his songs. Like I said, there's some instrumental songs and I like them, but they're not as they don't hook you as much. They kind of segue into like whatever you're doing, cooking dinner, and then he opens up with something else. There's one, this is for you, dude. Southland of Heart is the 6th song. It's Neil Young, but better. Sorry. Better than Neil Young. Oh, Neil Young's Canadian too, right?
Absolutely.
And then number 8 song, that is Someone I Used to Love. And it sounds like Bare Naked Ladies, but I bet Bare Naked Ladies have stolen stuff from Bruce Cockburn, not the other way.
Maybe more than likely. Yeah. Yeah. Especially in
'Cause-
94. Especially in 94.
Yeah, but it does have a little sense of that. All the songs I like, most of them I love, and it's an album that never disappoints me. If you like Dave Brubeck, there's some Dave Brubeck in his writing. It's just interesting. That's my album.
Yeah, that was I have not listened to the album that I remember. It's out of my wheel, and it's not out of my wheelhouse. I just don't remember that record, or I've never listened to it, to be honest with you. But I know that T-Bone Burnett, he produced that record. So
Yeah. Oh, he did.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't look
Yep.
at that.
yeah.
old T-Bone.
Yeah, he does a lot of. He knows how to get something out of a musician in that culture that way. Blues, especially.
Mhm.
I looked something up too because I wanted to, because Coburn generally, he has that lyricism kind of thing that he does to do, and the word is, so one of the critics said it was pithy, very pithy. So
Interesting.
yeah, so
Yeah. But this
All right.
album, I think you should listen to it because if you like Bruce Springsteen, Nebraska, you'll like it.
yeah, that's kind of like the hint from me. Like, well, if that's the way you're going with it, I might have to do that because that is definitely one of my
Yeah.
favorites.
And then you tell me if I'm right or wrong.
I shall.
Okay.
Grateful Dude, what say you on your pick on this special edition where there's
Special
a certain
edition.
thing going on?
Mark, look at the text I sent you. Okay, guys. The one I picked tonight is I've actually seen in concert, and that was my first exposure to them. They blew me off the floor. They were just so freaking good. And this album goes back about 8 years. I am talking about the Bills and Let 'Em Ride, or something like that. Let me go to my notes here. My notes. Come on, notes, open up. Okay, so the Bills were formed mostly in the west coast of Canada, but they live all over Canada. Right now, they've changed members, but the ones with them now have been there a while. It's Mark Atkinson, Richie Moody, Chris Fry, Adrian Dolan, and Scott White. They're amazing. Each one of them plays at least 3 instruments. It is unbelievable, and they are a mixture of folk rock, bluegrass, and a little bit of country thrown in. They are, in my book, they're their own genre. I really like them, especially when your first exposure is live and in a theater of less than 200 people, 200 audience. It's really easy to get well immersed. This album, I believe, is their 5th album. I believe. Yeah, right. and it's a great album. I mean, I Let 'Em Ride is one of their more mainstream albums. I think some of them are way bluesy and way more folk, but this one's more mainstream. I love this album. I've listened to this album maybe 30 times or so. I watched the whole thing. I listened to the whole thing this morning, and then I found out that the Bills on YouTube have the album all done with the in order with the video behind it. So
Wow.
yeah, it's a really good thing.
That's
It's
cool.
but I love the band. I can't say enough about them. If you guys have not out there, I'm sure most of the panelists have heard of them. But for you out there in Radio Land who want to hear some really talented people, and if you want to see real talented people, there are at least 20 or 30 videos of them doing separate songs on YouTube. So they're all over the place. But I really suggest if they ever come to a town near you, you go see them. They tend to do small venues. Okay.
That's fun.
And they're mostly acoustic. So anyway,
I love it.
Yeah, let them run.
Let them run. That's it.
Okay.
I knew there was a problem here.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the actual how many albums.
I thought it was.
I thought he said 5.
I thought he said five.
Fourth or fifth, maybe. That's what he was
I
saying.
think it's their fifth. I think it's their fifth.
So they're young.
Yeah, I can't find.
I would say they're all about Mark's age.
Yeah.
Well, that's not young. It's just younger than us.
Yeah,
what I
let
meant.
them by discography. Let them run because it's the third record because their first album was the Bill Hilly Band. Then
Yep.
2002 was All Day Every Day.
Bill
2004 Let Them Run, but they also did a 2005 Let Them Run because that was their first U.S. release from Canada.
Right, exactly.
So that's kind of where you get that fourth in. As a matter of fact, that'll be interesting because when I talk about my album, I'll explain that too, that you can be released in Canada on a major record label, but not have a US release for some reason. I'll get into that.
Okay.
But yeah, good pick there. I like one of the descriptions that says they're a high impact acoustic band. Not bad. Not bad.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Interesting.
They're definitely high impact, but as I said, it's really hard to pick a genre for them.
Yeah.
But if you listen to them, especially if you're not watching them or watching a video, just listen to them. They have so much in common with bluegrass. It's amazing. It's especially with the mandolin and stuff like that. But almost all their songs has a little bluesy or bluegrass or a combination of blues and bluegrass. So to me, it's not only in my wheelhouse, it's riding in the front lane.
Yeah, we gotta love a band that appreciates upright bass.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. It's not easy.
Mr. Young,
Hey,
what bring you from the Leaf?
it's the 5th studio album in 1981 from Triumph called Allied Forces. And you know, what's funny is like Triumph would get played when I was younger, like on classic rock stations.
Yeah.
I don't even think I ever paid attention to the fact they were actually Canadian.
Nope.
And you know,
Oh, I did.
so Allied Forces had obviously the song Allied Forces, but the two most famous songs, Magic Power and Fight the Good Fight. And I just gotta say, if you have not seen the live version of Fight the Good Fight at the US festival, it is spectacular. It's at a large, gigantic like football stadium, but I mean, for that time, the sound was pretty good. And I mean, his voice while playing the guitar just is spot on. So good. I feel like Triumph is a band I think I appreciate him more now than when I did back then, just being younger and,
Yeah,
being
sure.
older now. But this band's first two albums didn't ever even get released in the US, and they're from Toronto. Their first paid gig was at a high school. And
I love that.
well, with Rick Emmett anyway. But yeah,
And that was paid for by the Canadian government, probably.
Probably.
But the album's a good album. It's got a couple small instrumentals on it, but mostly just straight ahead rock songs. And it's just impressive because the band has not only does Rick Emmett sing and play guitar at the same time, the drummer does the same. Probably the song I like the most is not on Allied Forces that the drummer sings, but more like Rock and Roll Machine, which I think is from one of their previous albums. But just a bunch of really like three guys that are really super talented. And you know what? One thing that's really cool about this band that I read was that if you go on their Wikipedia page and you click on philanthropy, their philanthropy section is bigger than most people's pages on their entirety. Like they have donated so much to charities. They actually, I think Rick Emmett donated like his catalog and all the business aspects of Triumph to Toronto University, and they actually have a program where they sign Fender guitars and donate them, and they usually go for like between 1,500 and 6,000. For like I could take 30 minutes just to even think about all the things they listed, everything they're doing for charity. It's just amazing. But they've done complete concerts and raised like a couple $100,000 a night for different charities.
That's amazing.
So yeah, they continue to do it to this day. But yeah, just really cool. Like you usually don't think to see. It's kind of surprising when you're looking at a rock band on a Wikipedia and they're like, oh my gosh, like the philanthropy section is bigger than most philanthropists.
But they're Canadian, and that they're activists, and that's how they're raised. Like I said with Bruce Cockburn, like he was championing against landmines and stuff. I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no,
Canadians
Or that the government takes their money and calls it philanthropy.
Stop. No, let's just think of the nice human condition. Stop.
But I kind of likened Rick Emmett in comparison to other guitarists of the time, or even that band compared to other rock bands of the time. Really well respected anybody who listens or knows them. But it's like I feel like anyone who follows hockey, you could call them the Dale Howard-Chuck of their time, because Rick Emmett was always compared to you got your Eddie Van Halen, your Randy Rhoads, and no one's really talking about Rick Emmett. Everyone's talking about all these other bands as opposed to Triumph, because there's just so many out at the time. But yeah, it's a really good album. I don't even know it honestly as well as I probably think I should, just for growing up with it. But yeah, especially Allied Forces. That's really they're probably their most popular album. It's the one that really kind of made them most popular in the US. But
Definitely
check out that live version of Fight the Good Fight. It's unbelievable.
I wouldn't even think that their debut would have been released in the US.
Their first two albums were not.
Okay.
And in fact, I think the first song they ever got any notoriety for in Canada was a cover tune. And I'm trying to think which one it was. I don't know if I have it here listed. Which one was it? It was what was it? It was
That is the album with the guitar on the cover, right? I'm
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Okay. Just want to make sure. Yeah. I can honestly say probably after
it was their version of Rocky Mountain Way.
Oh, okay. Maybe I stopped. I don't know. Rick Emmett is still. I know he probably doesn't play much anymore, because I think he's not well from the standpoint of being able to play like he wants to or whatever. My brother-in-law has seen him probably.
Well, I don't know if you guys ever
9 times.
went to it, but in our hometown, Lockport, he played one of those free multi-Canadian shows, and he played nothing but Triumph songs. It was great because he had a solo career too. But
and just to interject,
I actually have a poster that he signed for me.
Oh, just to interject, I was at that US Festival. It was at all 4 US festivals.
Yeah, there was a lot. It was like an all-day thing, right?
It's I walked out the second day. It was a 4-day. The first one was a 4-day because 250,000 people and only three portable toilets doesn't make for a good smelling arena after a while.
No, no, no.
But they were supposed to be. It was hyped as the U.S. I mean the California Woodstock. That's what it was hyped at.
Yeah.
But everybody was there.
Yeah, it looked like it was pretty big. It was, I mean, was that where the Raiders play? Where'd they have it? Like, it had to be huge.
Actually, it was it was in the desert. We're close to the desert in an old speedway.
Okay,
Oh,
that makes
okay,
sense.
yeah.
That's why there was 3 toilets.
Yeah. Well, the
Yes,
problem
they
is
took
everybody
it
was,
all the toilets are at the other stadium.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't believe you're having this at a motor speedway. What? I've been to one show at a motor speedway, Markham.
I do remember too the
In
one that
Markham.
I forget the bassist name, but the one bassist for a long time he used to, wherever city they were traveling, whatever concert venue they were in, whatever city they were in, if they had a hockey team, he'd wear the hockey jersey on stage.
I love it. Yeah,
cool.
that's Canadian.
That's Canadian.
But I love it.
U.S. cities too.
I know.
Yeah, but it's a
Okay.
Canadian that would think to do it, right?
All right, so I'll end this tonight on a band that named themselves after a slogan of the Oregon boundary dispute. A band famous, probably the only famous band out of basically Tsawwassen, British Columbia.
I'm gonna guess
Spelled-
either North Oregon or South Oregon. Just kidding.
Tsawwassen. It's basically the southernmost border town. It's the only entrance into Canada from the U.S. at that point. The band, you can call them 5440, or you can spell it, or you can put 54-40. 5440 has been a long staple in Canada, and the album I've chosen is Dear Dear.
Glad
Not
you
a
picked that.
deer
I was
with
thinking of
antlers.
last week.
Say again?
Really?
I'm glad you did that one. I was thinking of doing that one last week and I changed it.
Yeah, so it's DEAR, DEAR. Now this is 1992. And at that point, just to give you a little background, they are really honestly competing for the alternative rock pop scene with the likes of the Tragically Hip. The Tragically Hips completely came out that year. But not only that, you had Bare Naked Ladies Gordon, you had Katie Lang's Ingenue, Neil Young's Harvest Moon, Sass Jordan's Racine, Doing the Nasty by Slick Toxic, which is a little bit more metal. And then, of course,
You were from Canada.
Sloan
says.
Smeared and Blue Rodeo's Lost Together, which one of these nights I'll be talking about that. So what it is I'm going to tell you this. 5440 is probably one of the most well-known Canadian bands in Canada. People go to see them all over the place live. Their songs are infamously famous, yet they have no #1 single ever, nor do they have a #1 album ever.
Like the Hip.
As a matter of fact, Dear Dear wasn't even allowed to be produced in the United States. After their first several albums failed in the US, they were dropped from the label, even though the Canadian side went rather well. 5440's Dear Dear is actually probably now double platinum in Canada. I think it was maybe in a year later it was platinum. It's kind of crazy when you think about it, but I'll get into the songs in a minute. But the album was recorded in somebody's famous studio in California. That's how talented these guys were and known. That gentleman's name's Tom Petty. What is 5440? Basically an alternative pop rock band with a vocalist, Neil Osborne, who is very distinct and the minute the guitars start, they have a signature sound. If I told you you've heard 5440, you're going to tell me you've never heard of them, if you've never heard of them. But you've heard of them because a very famous band in the early or in the mid what? I can't think of the timing, but a certain band covered one of their songs and it was like one of the biggest hits of their career. Anybody want to guess?
No.
I Go Blind by Hootie and the Blowfish. But it
Oh,
wasn't
yes.
by Hootie and the Blowfish. It was written by 5440. And of course, every time they play live, well, probably not every time, but they usually go, we want to thank, Hootie and the Blowfish, but this is our song. And they'll play it and everybody go, oh my God, I have heard of them. Yes, you have. And other songs too. On the album, Sheila, Nice to Love You. Also that was famous was We Are, We Pretend, and You Don't Get Away That Easy. And what happened for me was special kind of thing for me because I was in love with the song Music Man. And it was kind of the first time where a horn was brought in. Now I'd seen them many times and there's no chance of a horn. So they never played that song until one night at the Trough. We're going to go see the show. I said, Sue, you want to go? And Sue goes, no, we've seen him so many times. You just go. You could request a song. And I was requesting it all the time, not knowing what was going to happen that night. Jeff, were you there?
I don't remember.
I know that Keith was there. So at that night, they changed everything because they had a scat singer called Coco Love Alcorn. So because she can scat, she can do the horn with her voice. So during the show, they shouted out my AOL and said, stop texting. Or I wasn't texting. What are you doing then? I was emailing,
No,
right?
you were
Please stop.
emailing. There was no messaging or texting.
So they played it and she did the horn via. If you want to catch that and how it was done,
cool.
there is a live album called Heavy Mellow. And it's got heavy stuff and mellow stuff. It's a double CD. But 5440's Dear Dear. Excellent rock pop album. To me, if we were going to do a ranking of, probably have to do it by myself. But the fact of the matter is this would probably be my favorite album of theirs of all time. Although they're in Canada, this would probably not be because the first couple are always coveted because of the songs Ocean Pearl and oh my God, I can't think of the others. But they have been, there is a spot in this album where there's a hidden track. And then past the hidden track is one of my favorite songs of theirs also called Social Work, which doesn't get notoriety because it actually has no space number on the album. So you can't just go right to it. And I think that was a very popular thing in the 90s to have hidden tracks. Yeah. I think even later on, like Tool, you had to wait 892 clicks before the song started or something.
What's funny about 5440 is you probably wouldn't know it by listening to their albums, because they rock, but when you see them live, man, they crank it up to 11. They really blow you away with it's high volume, but it's clear. They are a rock band.
Yeah, they turn it
11, right? An 11?
Up to
I love
11,
it.
man. So anyway, I will thank all the panelists tonight, Deb, Grateful Dude, and Jeff for doing this and bringing some light to albums from the Leaf. We'll do this again in 2 weeks. We're on the web at www.beyondyourradio.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We'd love you to subscribe. Click the like button. Click it. Don't click it too many times because then you'll turn it off. But click it once. Go to another one of ours. Click that one. Go to another one. Click that. Don't even watch them. If you don't want to watch, just click. Just click like. I don't even care if you watch. Somebody's got to click like besides like me. I'm in love with myself. Anyway, as always, thank you for watching and happy listening.